2, 1. Mark Walford, you are the founder and CEO of TrustedCare. Welcome back to the Care Home Show.
Very much. Thanks for having me with Simon.
Very welcome. So please, before we get started, please can you give our audience just a quick reminder on you and your organisation?
Sure. So as you kindly said, I'm the founder here at TrustedCare. So there's sort of multiple sides of our business. Sort of chief amongst them is an online platform, an online referral platform for care seekers. So a marketplace, digital marketplace, I guess. So we connect those who are looking for care services with those who offer them and provide them. We do that two ways. We do that either through the sort of online directory and the listing service, but predominantly what we do is we operate a big brokerage service. So care seekers contact us directly. We go through with them kind of their needs, what it is they're looking for, obviously not just the health and social care needs, but also the kind of key demographics and kind of what's driving this decision into to looking for support at this time. And then we work with the care seeker to find a suitable provider to whom to go to and report all the way. So that's kind of one side of what we do. And then the other side of the business is more of a professional services business where we handle sales, inquiry management, customer service on behalf of care providers. So call center service, live chat support, inquiry management. We do market research, we do sales training. And more recently, we've just launched a CRM system as well. So quite diverse range of things, but all of it very much focused on connecting providers with clients.
Yeah, I remember you first explaining your business model to me at the Great British Care Awards when we were sat with Ben Allen from UMF and Adam Hutchison from Belmont. I remember thinking to myself, what you've done is you've taken kind of an idea that let's say has been used elsewhere and improved upon it quite significantly. So yeah, I remember thinking you've done a really good job. And obviously that must have been, maybe 18 months ago, certainly maybe even 2 years since then. So it's been great watching your own kind of personal and business evolution, kind of how you've taken things to the next level. And I like the fact that what I find interesting about your business is, of course, you've got two customers. You've got the care seekers, and then you've got the service providers as well. Which sometimes I don't envy you, because it's got obviously juggling those two worlds. I can imagine must be quite challenging. But ultimately, connecting those two worlds is immensely important, because as everyone that will be watching this will know, of course, the disconnect between those two parties can be quite considerable. And I was only speaking to somebody the other day who the videographer, my fiance's wedding, we were having a bit of a catch-up call, and he was saying recently found out that not recently found out that my mum's got Alzheimer's, but my mum's had Alzheimer's for a while, and we recently got to a point where we know that in the not too distant future that she's going to need some type of care package. I know you're the care guy. Where do I go? And I just said, look, just go on the TrustedCare website. You'll find loads of useful information there. They've got a call centre. Speak to the people there about what your mum is looking for, and she'll the team there will be able to help you make those really important decisions.
Yeah, no, definitely. Most people that contact us either have a misconception of what it is that they need, or are not completely aware of the options that are available to them. So we support all aspects of the spectrums within care, whether or not that is residential nursing, or end-of-life services, all the way through to home care, living care services. And that sort of breadth of market that we have gives us a good opportunity to present a range of solutions back to care seekers. The typical one is most people get in touch with us and say, help, I need a nursing home for my mum. And by the time you've kind of had that conversation with them, gone through all the options and we've kind of understood what it is that they're looking for here, we're nowhere near nursing, we're residential at best. If not, have you even considered home care and what that looks like? So really, I guess the skill and expertise of my team are, we've got complete broad market understanding. They're experts in all areas of the care landscape, but on top of that, they are people. And it's a real people approach. It's an emotive purchase. It's a sometimes very distressed purchase. Daily we'll have people who are in tears down the phone to us. It's a really challenging time. And obviously with what's been going on with COVID, that's just been exacerbated quite a lot. So we kind of surf the worlds between a tech business and a people business, but ultimately care is a people business. So it has to have that human element to what we do.
Yeah, definitely. And from my understanding of the approach, it's very much around the service side of things. It's helping support people through, as you say, what can be a very difficult and emotive period, because it's difficult to understand what that landscape is whenever because I'm the care guy, so whenever kind of friends and family and things, they're in a set of circumstances where they're in that care seeker mode, I'm always the guy that gets the text message or the call, and the first thing I highlight is it's a bit of a minefield out there. Just manage your expectations that it could be quite difficult. Before I would kind of make some recommendations on what to do. Now I can just say, yeah, just go and have a look on trustedcare.co.uk. They'll sort you out. So, and I guess that's the consumer end, but from a provider perspective, and I mean most specifically the people that will be watching this and listening to this will be care home operators, but you do an awful lot of work around one of the most important words of the day at the moment, or words at the moment, because of the COVID set of circumstances, which is around the marketing, the customer experience, customer journey, and broadly around occupancy, which is of course something that almost every care home in the country is under some significant pressure. Obviously, there's a bit of a range in what people are specifically experiencing, but there has been, as a sector, we've seen quite a considerable drop. I don't know what the numbers are, the latest numbers are on that. That might be something that you could elaborate on, but certainly I've seen I've heard of people anywhere between kind of 5 up to about 15%. They're lower than they would be typically at the moment, and everything in between. So that was part of the reason when we were having our catch up the other day, I thought to myself, actually, you know what, me and Mark need to have this conversation, because we were talking about stuff that was super relevant. And it has been. I can't believe this. When I went back through the podcast, it's been basically a year since we last sat down. Albeit we were in a studio last time, but Zoom is serving us well in this particular instance. But so tell me, obviously the world has come on an awfully long way since our last discussion. Yeah, what does the world look like from where you are?
Yeah, so it's been obviously a immensely challenging time. It's changing weekly, daily in the early parts of obviously what was going on. I think it's fair to say year to date we're probably seeing inquiry volumes 20% off where they were this time last year. The start of the year started really quite positively, for not just for us at TrustedCare and obviously our platform. It was a real boom time in terms of inquiries coming in, but also for the partners that we support in the call center business as well. So we started to pick up. Obviously, COVID was around before Christmas, and it's being reported across Europe and in other places, but it didn't seem to be impacting too heavily in the early part of the year, certainly January, February time. Coming into March, however, obviously that's when we started to really pick things up. And what we saw in the early part of it was obviously a lot of homes taking sort of preemptive measures, lots of them putting in place policies and steps around sort of family visits, visits from prospect care seekers as well. So that did have a little bit of an impact on kind of inquiry volumes and certainly sales. And then sort of moving in towards March, and actually towards the end of March, there was this immense rush. On actual inquiries, and then there was this big spike mid-March where the government it was rumoured that lockdown was going to be coming, and what that kind of looked like. We'd already been asking kind of the elderly to shield in their homes. I think a lot of families kind of took the view that it would be better for mum or dad to be in a home with other people around them than at home on their own. So we definitely saw a big spike in inquiries for sort of short-term care packages in the first 2 to 3 weeks in March. Alongside that was sort of also supplemented by quite a big rush from social workers, discharge coordinators. I think the money was flowing certainly from the COVID funding in the hospitals, and we were seeing lots of people who in a normal world wouldn't have received anywhere near the kind of funding support that they were getting from the NHS to move into homes, but it was kind of blank check time, and lots of people were piling out. So although inquiries as a proportion were down in March, it was a bit of a rush time. What we saw the biggest fall away from was kind of the speculative inquiries, as you can kind of expect. And then into April and May, it was bleak. I think it's pretty fair to say. Inquiries down 50, in some parts 70% of what we would normally see, and that sustained for sort of 3, 4, 5 weeks. Obviously, it sounds strange, but good weather even bad for some. Good weather does have an impact on care referrals, even in a normal world. We've seen that before. Bank holidays, things like that. So, I mean, but April and May were very, very quiet months for inquiry volumes. The stuff that was coming through was very much, complete crisis driven, very high needs level of care, palliative in some aspects, lots of very high end dementia support where people, the care package had failed. Coming through into June, we've seen a recovery. I think inquiries sort of 25% off where they were this time last year, but May it was probably 55-60% off. And again, that's been building up week on week on week as we've gone sort of through June. We started to see a recovery in short-term care package inquiries. Obviously, when the government announced that holidays could be back on the cards, there was definitely a little bit of a flurry of inquiries at that time. A good friend of mine runs a big holiday booking website, and he sold out within the first couple of days of the government announcing that holidays, there's definitely in the UK, kind of be back on. And we saw a little spurge of referrals at that time. I think overall the month closed reasonably well. The first couple of weeks of July, it looks promising again. It is kind of plateauing a little bit, but I think we'll probably close July, based on our expectations, probably about 80%, 82% of where we were this time last year. I think again the biggest hit has been the short-term care packages. Obviously, lots of the homes kind of have policies and procedures in place around shielding people coming into the homes, completely understandable. But it is at the same time obviously putting off a lot of care seekers and families kind of going, well, I was thinking about putting dad in a home for 2 weeks because of the social interaction. But if he's got to sit in his room for 2 weeks, then perhaps we're going to look at other services or other solutions for that. Home care and living care have probably done quite well through this to a point. Definitely through April, it was the first time we had ever seen home care and living care search demand on trusted care completely outstrip residential care. There was a complete swing to home care services, living care during that time. It has tapered off a little bit, but they've definitely come out reasonably strong. And I would say the rate of recovery for that side of the market has been quicker than residential.
Got you. And I mean, I guess the stats that you're quoting, people that are watching this will be kind of living and breathing this at the moment. So it will probably I'd imagine it will be an interesting reference point for them to see kind of outside of their own organisations and get to understand what's going on more broadly in the marketplace. Do you have any thoughts and feelings around, at least in maybe the next couple of months, do you envisage, at least from an inquiry perspective, how do you think we'll fare up over the coming months, and what type of percentages from an inquiry perspective do you envisage, at least at this stage, or is it maybe even too hard to tell?
It's hard to tell, I think, because obviously there's the rumours and concerns of a second spike coming, maybe even a third in the early part of next year. I've been on a few briefings recently with market analysts and other people who are sort of predicting a second spike around September, October time, and perhaps another one in the early part of 2021. Interestingly, I mean, I've had a few good old-fashioned meetings recently, so I think in some ways life's starting to come back to normal, the face-to-face kind. And I was talking to a district nurse the other day, and actually she was saying that in their trust they've had pretty much all their holidays cancelled for September, October time, in sort of preempting the fact that they certainly feel that there's going to be a second spike. Now, what will that do for care providers and inquiries? Well, it's hard to say. I think that the ultimate fact is that care's not going away. The need is certainly not going away. And in many cases, if anything, it's probably being exacerbated at the moment. Like I said earlier on, I think, I personally have had a number of conversations with care seekers calling into us for support. One gentleman sticks in my mind completely. He was in tears down the phone to me, caring for his mother with his father. Both of his mother and father are in their late 80s. His mother had quite advanced Alzheimer's. She was up all night, up all day. He'd taken the view to come and shield with them to help them provide support for his father. But he was completely at the end of his ability, both physically and mentally, to be able to support his mum. But all that being said, he still could not balance that with the inability of being able to see his mum if he was to move her into a care home. So although he kind of knew this is as much as we could do as a family, he couldn't level that emotionally with kind of, okay, we'll have to put mum in a home now, however I can't go and see her. And that was a huge challenge. And that's something we see increasingly at the moment. I mean, it's a massive thing. Like I said, we're getting a lot more people that have kind of been shielding with relatives, and now can't do it anymore themselves, be it either because they can't physically care for them or their own circumstances are changing. As more of the economy comes back to life, more businesses come back to life, more people are being brought back from furlough if they've been on it. And it's definitely making the family unit's ability to care for loved ones, it's putting a little bit more pressure on it. So we're starting to feel that come in. What it looks like long term, I don't think inquiries this year will recover completely. I think we'll just have to see how it goes through the winter months. Obviously, we'd naturally see a spike at that point, but we won't probably get the short-term care that we once did. I think if we can hope for 90% by the end of the year of what we did last year, I think that would be good.
Yeah, that seems sensible. And I guess there are so many variables with all of this as well. Not to mention, heaven only knows what the government will do or say that may have implications on the set of circumstances. So, you touched upon a little bit around kind of how care seekers have been impacted by COVID. What else can you tell me from the consumer end of the perspective spectrum, if you like, about what they're experiencing and what you're seeing?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, again, it's changing. It's changing almost weekly, again, in terms of expectations, concerns. At the early part of this sort of April, May time, care seekers had a huge amount of questions and concerns. I mean, the care seekers that there were at that point. Lots of stuff around kind of, is there COVID in the home? What measures are the home putting in place for it? But what we found increasingly of late is that actually they have less questions around it. I think we're all kind of getting used to it. Everybody was a bit of an expert at the start. And generally it's kind of, if we're asking the questions to care seekers, what are your concerns? What obstacles have you got to overcome? I think lots of them are just sort of, just follow the government guidelines, best practice. I think a lot of people have concerns predominantly around staffing in the care homes. That's their biggest worry for the most part, around kind of COVID getting in, not necessarily the measures that the homes are putting in place around testing, isolation for new residents. The general consensus is the greatest concern is around the staff, and lots of people saying, they go home at the end of the day, they've got their own lives to live. They go to the shops, they go to the pub, they go wherever. And that's the risk where lots of families sit. So I think providers can address that situation with care seekers up front. That will go a long way. But I think, as I said earlier, the biggest obstacle we've seen has been the inability of family to visit loved ones in care homes, particularly new residents or new clients into services. Those with dementias and such, it's a completely alien environment. It can be very distressing, and families have a lot of reservations about it. And then not having the ability to come in and see them, I think, it completely is deterring a proportion of care seekers at this time. Those who need to do it, and they don't have much of a choice. The providers who are embracing visits where possible and where safe to do so, whether that's garden visits, visiting pods, we've seen all sorts of innovations in there. Those guys are having a bit of an advantage right now.
Yeah, it certainly seems so. The things that I mean, it's good to see that people are taking an innovative approach to brokering visits. I think it's really important for the resident. It's really for the service user, I should say, depending on kind of exactly what type of service it is they're receiving.
I think it's important to start at the home as well, because we're speaking to them daily, and a lot of them saying a lot of the life and the buzz and the fun, like that stuff that families bring, and when the kids come in and the grandchildren and all of that stuff. It's life, isn't it? That's it, and that's what homes are. They should be home from home and have that energy and that buzz about them. And lots of people we're speaking to, lots of home managers or people who work in providers, sort of saying that part is also a sad part that they kind of lost a little bit.
And that's, as you say, that's kind of, you walk through the door of a great care home that's got lots of exciting stuff. There's that palpable energy that you feel, and to not have maybe as much of that because you've just got less kind of people coming through the door. The teams will of course be looking to inject energy into the situations and to try and put as much of a buzz in the environment as possible. But to your point, it's never going to be what it would be otherwise, because you haven't got the people coming in and kind of sharing their own energy in that set of circumstances. So do you think are care seekers basing their decisions around how people, how operators and service providers are addressing the COVID set of circumstances so relevant to kind of how prepared they are?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. Although I said that care seekers are asking less questions, they are obviously still asking questions about COVID and what measures and what steps that the homes have put in place. I think what was really interesting recently is, it hasn't deterred care seekers from considering homes that have had COVID. I think lots of people are just aware that it's just one of those things for a lot of it. It hasn't necessarily put off inquiries or inquirers from progressing their inquiry with the home that's had it. If the home has it, it's a slightly different situation. Obviously, that can just naturally deter some people. But I like going again back to the point and labour on it, I know, but like this whole visiting thing is probably one of the biggest deciding factors for families at this time. I was talking to an operator the other day, and they're not even considering garden visits, and it's having such a detrimental impact on their, not till the end of the year, they're saying, well, we think it'll be the end of the year, and completely understand that in some instances, just because of the layout of the home, or if you can't get to the garden, they don't have one, it's not possible in all circumstances. But where it is possible, I think those that are kind of maybe shying away from that, or not thinking that that's important, I think they need to really consider that. Obviously, there's always a balance to be struck between the clinical team and the safety of residents and that side of things, the operational side. But if you don't have new lifeblood into the home itself, new clients, that is the future, and you'll limit your runway quite quickly. As we're saying, there is probably 70-80% of the referrals in the market that there was this time last year. Couple that with, you've got 15% less in occupancy, and couple that also with a natural turnover of residents in the home. Almost every provider we're talking to now has a bed available. COVID in some ways has been good for TrustedCare as a business, because we've had a huge inbound volume of providers joining the platform, listing their services with us, wanting referrals. People who, I've tried for years to get into them. I mean, you're probably listening to this, they know who they are. I've been trying for years to get into them, and now they've kind of going, we've got a problem. So everybody's fighting for the few leads that there are. So yeah, I think any little small levers you can pull, whether or not that's family visits, whether or not that's, being responsive, virtual tours, whatever you can do to kind of bring that home experience back to the families, will give providers.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I've spoken to, well, I mean, I'm constantly in the cycle of speaking to lots of different leaders of care home businesses, and I think there's a range of there's a range in the approach that people are taking. Some people are being very cautious in their approach around what do we invest, how do we invest, what do we invest in, all of that type of stuff. And I think there are certain other people that are being more kind of assertive with, okay, so we will buy a care pod, we'll invest in whatever it might be. And I think the thing that keeps on going through my mind is that if you've got something within the structure of your building already, whether it be a room that sits on the peripheral of the home where you're going to the footfall is likely to be lower, or you've got a conservatory, or you're interested in some type of care pod or cabin or whatever it is, it's going to be an asset, and that's an asset that could be marketed, and that will help consumers to be able to make decisions. Because if I was in that set of circumstances and I was thinking about an elderly loved one, and where they could potentially live in the future, and there was no opportunity for any kind of outside interaction for me and my family to look at, it would be difficult to make that decision, because immediately the first thing that you think of is, well, they're going to be lonely and isolated. And that's the part of the reason, part of the big benefit of living in a care home. You mentioned it earlier. It's about interaction. It's about engaging with people. It's about lifestyle choice. I mean, depending on kind of where the person is in their life's journey, will obviously indicate kind of how kind of what's going to be going on in their life. But people being around people, we're kind of designed for that as humans. It's a really, really important part. So not being able to have that as part of a care package in a care environment, that I can see it having a really negative impact on people. So I'm hoping that, I think today I've seen lots of people with gazebos and kind of wooden summer houses and things like that, and I think it's great for today. But what happens in October? What happens later on in the year? There's going to be I feel like it's a good solution for now, but is it going to be a good solution for tomorrow?
Oh, like the farmers make hay while the sun shines. I think, like you say, it's the summertime. We've been blessed with some great weather to date, and try where possible. And you don't have to necessarily go all in on something ridiculously fancy. I think Mark Zuckerberg, the great Zuck from Facebook, says done's better than perfect. And I think actually right now, families, they don't necessarily need to have a all singing, all dancing visiting pod. They just want to see their nan, or they just want to see their mum. And so that's, I don't think hold out for something spectacular, just that simple seeing the person face to face, and whatever that looks like will be enough at this time. But your point is absolutely right. We need to start thinking about what happens long term. There are a lot of people in homes where they're bedbound and they can't get down to the garden, to the pod even. So, how are we going to address those situations? As you say, winter's around the corner. You're not going to necessarily want to sit outside or bring an elderly person out, particularly ones with underlying healthcare conditions, into a garden when it's 4 degrees outside and blowing. It's going to be those are challenges that we're going to have to try and overcome. And I think the providers that adapt to that early on and have that view that actually this is going to be the new normal for a period of time, at least for the next sort of 12 months. I think they're going to have a significant advantage over those that just kind of will sit back and ride it out.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the insights that I've been aware of, and this is just through speaking to different operators around kind of what their experience has been like. I think there's 2 trends that I think people should, if they're not already thinking about this, that they should really give some thought to, some consideration to, and build these 2 things into their plan. But you've got 2 things at play here. So where there is effectively, we're entering into kind of a buyer's market type end of the spectrum as well, where there's going to be far more supply than there is demand. I think that means that operators are going to have to look at how they engage people within their communities. They're going to have to think about their marketing, their customer services, that whole approach. I know I posted on LinkedIn the other day that you commented on one of my when I was going off on one about the fact that in the past that people could have held on to the concept that if you look after the care, then everything else looks after itself. Obviously, the care side of things, it is always going to be the fundamental part of the business. But I think in the era that we are now, in this new world, operators are going to have to up their game. They are going to have to look at how to address their community, to help them to understand how great they are, because there's we know full well there's amazing operators out there that do such a fantastic job, but we're quite a humble sector. I don't think it comes naturally to many people, whether it be a care home manager or whomever else, to really kind of shout from the rooftop about all the fantastic things that you're doing, whether that be in a normal set of circumstances or COVID to one side. So there's going to be a real shift towards that. So I can see people. So the people use the terminology, so cost per acquisition. So how much does it cost to market for one resident to move into our care home? And that's evidently going to have to go up to increase the demand, to give you that kind of market cut through and things that you're going to look for. But then also as well on the consumer end of the spectrum, because people have been hesitant, they've been holding back for a period of time. It would be reasonable to assume that the kind of 18 months time period that people would usually live in a care home, that number might go down, and how much that number is going to go down over time has really yet to be seen. But this all needs to be factored into financial modelling, looking at the sustainability of business, being sensible with what you do spend money on, but then also looking at innovations and things that are going to make that difference from both from an occupancy perspective, but then also from a resident perspective as well. So I can imagine this is I'm preaching to the converted, to many of the audience that's out there kind of nodding at home, thinking, yeah, that this is all stuff that we're thinking about. But I guess if these aren't things that you've had an opportunity to give any headspace to yet, then I think they'd be worthwhile looking at with the team and just saying, right, okay, so what do we need to do to make sure that we're being conscious of this stuff, and that we're being really diligent and robust in our strategy and our approach to all of this?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And as you say, like the biggest areas we've seen fall away have been, obviously, like I said earlier, short-term respite, but the lifestyle purchase stuff, the residential, just the plain residential kind of moving into a home for companionship and things like that. And that's been a hugely impacted space for us. So I know hopefully it'll come back. I'm sure to a point it will, but we see lots of new build, great facilities, look like incredible hotels that I'd love to stay at. But is there going to be that area of the market where there's libraries and such like that, and big spaces that kind of appeal to the whole lifestyle, senior living moving into it, or are we going to see a more fundamental shift, as you say, much more shorter term, higher acuity care needs? That's kind of going to be the future of residential care. Time will tell on that. I think also going back to the point that you made there about homes and the sector has been quite humble and doesn't bang the drum as heavy in terms of promotion. That's in some ways it's completely understandable. Most home managers are clinicians and carers by trade, and that's what they've come up to do, and that's why they run these amazing services and do the kinds of jobs that most people outside of the sector, or it's a lot of people inside the sector, couldn't dream of doing. It's amazing the work that they do, but at the same time, it's probably unfair for us to also think of, oh, you're a care manager, you're an excellent carer, you're an excellent HR person, you're an excellent leader. Oh, by the way, can you also be an excellent marketeer? Can you also be an excellent customer service person and an excellent sales person? Because, frankly, if they were any one of those things, they might be in another industry. But I think you're right. Like I said, there's 75% less inquiries and everybody's going after them. So providers are going to have to get better at handling inquiries, dealing with them when they make contact. We did an interesting piece of work recently, and we did quite a big chunk of market research, all spectrums of providers, And we sort of half did a mystery shop, half did kind of a detailed fact find about some of the providers and how their processes and services are offered. And we posed on the mystery shop, we posed as like the perfect client to the providers we contacted. We were private funded, we were, you know, quite low needs relative to the service they offer. And almost every home we contacted, I think actually every home we contacted had availability to support our needs. But was really interesting. I just give you the most key fact here. Only 54% of them took a phone number. Even less took any kind of details. And it's about 30, I'm just looking at the notes here. Yeah, 38% took details of mum's care needs. We was offered countless follow-ups with the managers, and none of them materialised. You know, my phone hasn't rung once with the manager ringing me back about it. So I get that services are busy right now and there's lots of stuff going on, but actually right now also there's a lot of them that are just not even focusing on or getting back to people. So when you've got you've got homes or services operators working that way, and then you've got the other guys, like the guys that, you know, what we do and what we do for our partners and such, who are just like on it, you know, every opportunity is gold dust at this time. Because, you know, not every opportunity is going to convert, but you need to hold on to those inquiries that are coming in, really demonstrate to the care seeker that you care, that this is valuable and important, that, you know, it sets the expectation for everything that they're going to receive thereafter. That initial point of contact just sets the playing field. You know, is the phone answered with a smile? You know, good morning, you're through to Cherrywood Grange, you're talking to Mark, how can I help you today? And, you know, just that exuberance of that moment sets the feeling for the care seeker. You can hear it on the phone with them. They naturally go, oh yeah, I'm looking for, and it just, you know, they relax, and this is fine, because, you know, pre-COVID, this was a difficult decision. During COVID, this is a difficult decision plus 100. You know, it's a big thing to do. So right now, you know, providers really need to kind of grab hold of that inquiry process. Ring your homes. If you know, anybody sat listening to this at home, I would say ring your homes. Ring them at a weekend, ring them at 6 o'clock in the evening, ring them at 10 in the morning. You know, the majority of care inquiries take place between 10 and midday. That is where the spike in inquiries takes place. It's also the time that morning meetings happen, the medication round takes place, the entertainers, if they were in. It's normally when the maintenance people turn up. It's normally when the manager's running around doing all sorts of other things. That's a key time there. So just ring them and see if you would be comfortable, if you would be happy with that what's taking place there. There are a lot of guys doing it really well. There are also a lot of guys that could probably improve on what's happening.
And it's one of those things from an inquiry management perspective. It's one of those things where if there's a short list of homes on somebody's radar, whether they've come through TrustedCare or they've kind of done their own due diligence elsewhere, if you end up with 2 or 3, 4 maybe choices that you think, oh, well, that could be good for mum or whomever it might be, the difference, the impact, and the difference that will make on the person making that phone call. If you get a somewhat lackadaisical, not particularly professional response, albeit from a perfectly nice person with great intentions, the difference between that and having a really tuned in, professional, warm, bubbly response, as you said, for the people listening to this, Mark kind of changed he's changed his own physiology. That was the kind of, you were indicating that it was almost like a moment of relaxation, and the fact that, oh, I'm in the hands of a professional here. These people are going to be able to help me. And we've all had that before. I had it quite recently. I spoke to 2 different people at HSBC. The first person, I bashing my head off the table, just really, really frustrated. And I was on the phone for so long that, I mean, it serves me right for being with HSBC, to be honest, but I'll move my bank shortly. But the first person I spoke to was just frustrating and didn't really, they weren't able to help me, and they weren't being particularly efficient. And then I had to jump onto another call, rang back later, and then the person, I explained what had gone on, and they just said, don't worry about it. I understand exactly what the process is. We just need to do this, this, and this. And exactly the same. Thank you. That's exactly what I need to feel better about being on the phone, having been, and that's me just trying to make I can't remember what I was doing now. It's like something to do with my like annual KYC, know your customer thing. And I was slightly stressed about it because it was just a kind of boring administrative job. Pile in like times 1,000 great Aunt Hilda's in a set of circumstances where we're going to have to start thinking seriously about hair. The quantum of stress is so much bigger. So the feeling of, oh, I'm being looked after by somebody that understands my set of circumstances, it's so valuable. And I mean, I know it's cliche, but there's only one opportunity to make a first impression, and that's all it boils down to.
As you say, if you've got 4 care homes that your family's looking at right now, all 4 will have a bed. Most of them, that's the case right now. Most providers out there will go, yeah, we've got occupancy right now. We've got it. So if I'm a care seeker, and go back 12 months, that 4 care homes in my locality, maybe one of them had a bed. So that was, whether or not it was my primary choice or not, it was kind of where I was going to go with it. Now it's completely flipped around. Like you say, it's a buyer's market. The supply is outstripping demand. So those tiny little things that the customer service experience, the follow-up, the getting the brochure when they said they were going to, the call back after the brochure was sent to check that they received it. All of these little things is just going to add a tiny little bit more to it, that's going to encourage that person potentially to favour one over another service.
Definitely. I can imagine lots of care home business leaders are going to be writing into their diaries, right? Must call care homes on weekend. And I guess if you're not, and there's any ambiguity in your mind around, are we doing a really great job of this? Then yeah, definitely allocate a little bit of time. It's only going to take you a relatively short amount of time for each home that you've got, and it will be one of the most valuable things that you can do. Obviously, then you need to start thinking to yourself, okay, so what does a great inquiry look like? How do we want to make people feel? What are the questions that we need to ask? How do we collect the data? What do we do with the data? How can we make sure it's all GDPR compliant? All of these types of things. But the first step is to give yourself I guess an opportunity to kind of benchmark and just say, are we doing a good job of this, or are we leaving ourselves open to effectively other people eating our lunch?
And if you haven't got the time, speak to me, speak to us, and we'll take you all the way through that journey. So that's part of what we do with that is what we do with the Trusted Care sort of professional services side, and all of those points that you said, whether it's the mystery shop, the inquiry management, all of that, we can help define a process and a journey. We've been doing this for nearly 10 years now. We've handled over over 150,000 inquiries all the way through the process. So we know what this looks like, and we've seen almost every circumstances. And it is a new world, and there is lots of stuff that is new even to us, and we learn every day. But you've got to keep on your ball with it. You've got to keep on your game, because as much as it's changing for us, it's changing for consumers every day as well. So you've got to keep a focus on, otherwise your runway just vanishes and you're in trouble.
That's it. And as somebody who, I guess we share a handful of clients as well. So as somebody who hears great things about Trusted Care, I can kind of throw in at least an indirect recommendation that I hear that you do fantastic work and that people say very good things about your service. So if anyone is listening, of course, it's trustedcare.co.uk, and all the details are on the website if you're interested to find out a little bit more. But we're talking about engaging the communities and the people that are inquiring, and again, the kind of broader context, of course, of this is occupancy. How do you see care homes? How can they do a better job of engaging with the communities that they serve?
So, if you look at any kind of big set of inquiry data that we manage on behalf of any provider, whether big or small, doesn't matter. The primary kind of, where did you hear about us? The kind of marketing obligatory data stuff in that sense. Although the referral may have come through Trusted Care to a point, or carehome.co.uk or Google Business List, whatever, the number one often is it's a local recommendation, it's a local referral, it's that local reputation side. And providers who are always good at that, whether or not that was engaging with the local community through the primary school, the scout group, whatever, that stuff. I know it's come to a halt at the moment, but I think the providers that can go back to that world in some way, or the new version of it, will be really good. I've seen some great stuff like school projects being involved at the moment with care home projects, all done via Zoom or all done via Skype. I've seen kids singing to residents and such through, the big TV in the dining room, and just little things like this. We all rallied behind Captain Tom Moore when he was doing his laps. I think people have got an aptitude and a want to champion it when it's going on with it. I think the biggest way that people can the biggest thing is to find a way to bring residents and their families together. The families in the community are your biggest ambassadors, secondary to your staff. Your staff are equally huge ambassadors for your service in the local community. If they're having a bad time at the home for whatever reason, they're going to tell all their friends, they're going to tell all their family, and it's just going to, it's going to spread out from there onwards. And that's, so providers who can, bring the families together, bring all that together and have that local reputation will benefit well. I think also embracing new ways of working, as I know we all have, and I was talking to a provider yesterday who said, we never would have got our managers together on a Zoom call, but prior to this, it's just, no, this is the new way of working. We're probably going to get rid of our head office and do it all digitally. So there's going to be a lot of innovation. But also just, being aware of what that innovation is. I know you guys at the moment are doing a lot of work around care tours and kind of virtual tours and video tours of homes and services. We're getting asked loads for these at the moment from care seekers, to kind of, they know they can't visit, so they want to see what the home's like, because it's a big decision, it's a big outlay of money, it's all of these things. So they want to see that it's, want to see what it's like. And I'm always amazed at how many homes or how many services just kind of have a shop from the outside and maybe a good looking corridor. Doesn't mean anything. Families want to see what's the communal spaces like, what's the bedrooms like, are the bathrooms en suite, what do they look like? And it doesn't have to be a completely polished feature length production of it. In some circumstances, a few photos. We've all got smartphones, they've all got cameras on them. They're all good cameras as well now. So, take some pictures, get them on the site, share them with family. That's a big, big thing. Or if not, go to the length of investing in a virtual tour or a video tour. It might be a few £100s, a few £1,000s, but if you think about how much a customer's worth to you and all of the things that we've spoken about already, that, small things make a big difference to them right now. A home that's got a tour versus a home that hasn't got a tour, who's going to go? Who's going to get the advantage to consider to the next stage? So I think providers need to embrace new ways of working when it comes to that, and ultimately focusing back on the customer. Amazon's big mantra, focus on the customer. Your point, absolutely right, focus on the care, because the client is also the customer in the home. But at that point of inquiry, really, really hone in on them, make them feel special, tell them about your service, be open, be transparent. That's one of the things that actually lots of the care seekers have been talking to us about, and it's the transparency of the home. They don't mind that accidents happen, they don't mind that COVID, well, they do mind that COVID happens, but they know that it is a fact of life nowadays. So being transparent, being honest, and being responsive.
I think that it's all about communication. It's all about effective communication. And I think in the digital world that we are today, we have so many more options when it comes to communication. And those different options they all have a place in the world, whether it be posting on Facebook, whether it be emails, whether it be calls, whether it be Zoom calls, whether it be videos, whether it be however it is you're engaging with your community. I think people just need to kind of double down on that and say, okay, so what are the real opportunities? What things are going to yield the most value? I mean, I'm a prime example of this in a slightly different set of circumstances, in as much as so going into COVID, me and my fiance, we decided a long time ago that we were going to move out to Hertfordshire, because we wanted to move to the country, because we were up in kind of rural suburbia, if you like. So we'd already started thinking about moving. COVID hit. Wonderful, albeit a wonderful two-bedroom apartment nonetheless, not so great for 3.5 months or whatever it was. We decided in that period of time that, yeah, you know what, it's time to get out of central London, and we made the decision on our future home. We were sold on a place, off the back of a video. So Savills had the foresight to think, okay, cool. So what we need to do is to, rather than just have a selection of great photos, what we need to do is to create a video to be able to see what the home looks like, what the community looks like, what the garden looks like, what the rooms look like and things. And we were able to have that, wow, this is going to be our new home feeling from the comfort of our sofa in Greenwich. And that it wasn't, it went from being exploratory to confirmatory, and it was just a case of like, just send me the details and we'll start moving with it. And that's, I'm delighted because I've been able to make that decision, because they had the foresight to think, how can we communicate with our customers in a way which is going to help them make decisions, and to get that feeling, because that's the thing that I think that care seekers are missing a lot of the time, is that warm fuzzy feeling when you walk through the door of a fantastic care home and there's that palpable energy. That's the thing that's ultimately going to help people to make decisions or not. Now, if you can introduce different ways of getting people kind of along that journey as far as you can through different ways of engaging your community, then your ability to be able to win the hearts and minds of the people is going to be so much higher than if you've just got kind of a normal website. You've kind of just taken a kind of a simplistic approach to your kind of listings on whether it's care home or trustedcare.co.uk. I think my point is the fact that the people who I'm hearing, and again, I have lots of data points for this, so I speak to endless amounts of leaders of care home businesses. The people that are winning at the moment in respect to getting themselves back to where they were previously are the people that are taking a long, hard look at how they're engaging with their communities and what can they do to improve that whole user experience and journey to get those feelings of positivity around making those what effectively are that. I mean, it's basically just about the most important buying decision that the person's ever gonna have. So it's real key stuff. So I guess we've alluded to this a little bit in some of the things that we've been talking to, but break down. So what would be your top 3 recommendations for care home businesses looking to drive occupancy, just so that those 3 things are really kind of clear and that people kind of they can directly act upon your insights, if you like.
Find a way to bring family and residents together. You know, that's appealing to both the people who are in the home, who are your ambassadors, whilst their loved ones are there, and it's super appealing to those who are being forced to make the decision between, right now they're in a pressure pot situation and need to make a decision about a service. So I would say, chief right now, I would say, for find a way, be open to ways. And obviously, we've done Zoom, we've done Skype, WhatsApps and such, but physical, seeing people in person, providers that can do that are definitely going to help to drive what they do. As you say, open up about what it is that you provide, the service offers, whether or not that's virtual tours, additional photos, whatever you can do. Right now, we're all super forgiving. Like, you or I are sat here right now. I've got my tortoise banging on the door, wanting to come into the office. I've got, it's not as polished as we used to want to be. But that's life now. We're all quite used to it. So it doesn't have to be super, high end. You can waste a lot of time waiting for Shangri-La to come along to perfection. So I think, find more ways to be better and ultimately focus on the customer. You have to focus on the care seeker right now. Like I said, they're nervous at the best of times coming into this. They're doubly nervous right now. If you're not paying them attention, if you're not thinking right now that, how we promote, how we present, how we come across to people, the few inquiries that there are in the market, if you're not given 100% on that, you're not going to win.
Well, I think that's a great place to stop. I think those 3 points are going to be things that people will give some serious consideration to. So, Mark Walford, as ever, it's great having you back on the Care Home Show. Thank you for sharing those valuable insights, and I'm sure that people that have been listening and watching will get an awful lot from this episode. So, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Simon. Cheers.